When was your first threesome, Nick? When did you pick up your first one? I'm just curious. So.
Let's move on.
Welcome to the Two Authors Podcast, an entertaining chat show hosted by best-selling mystery and thriller authors Douglas Pratt and Nicholas Harvey, in lively, humorous and informative conversation with distinguished guests who share their thoughts and experience about forging a successful author career.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for listening, both of you. Hi, Doug.
Hey, how are you, sir?
I counted my mum and one other listener.
Not my mom. She's not listening to us. We have too many bad words.
My mum does listen to every show. So.
Your mom, yes. Yeah. Your mom always is so nice. I love your mom.
She loves you too. So our guest this week is Kat Johnson, who's we'll get to in a little bit. She's a lovely lady and quite a live wire. That'll be fun to chat with her. But first, we have a listener question. This is from Judy in Ohio. How far out do you plan book releases and your writing schedule?
So what? Today's a Tuesday, so like Friday, maybe.
Wow, that far out.
Yeah, that's pretty far out for me. No, I've got most of 2025 planned and a little bit of 2026 kind of an idea. I keep it kind of fluid, so everything is kind of tentative because you never know. Like that's one of the plus sides is what we do is we can kind of work around. So if I want to add a new project in, I want to make sure I got some space. But I do this year I'm trying to be a little more aggressive and write a little bit more, get a little more books done for some of the readers. But
you've been slamming words down.
Yep, I've been trying to. So it's been snowing here, so I can't do anything else. So
there's that. Yeah.
How about you? How long? I know the answer, but let's see what you can tell everybody else. So.
Yeah, I'm boring. I have a spreadsheet and all this, but we do the same thing. You just do it, jot it on a piece of paper that you lose and keep it in your head. And I put it in a spreadsheet. So, but we both do the same thing. So, and a lot of it's geared by the fact that we've got to line up an editor and they have a busy schedule. So we've got to reserve that slot to get that done. And we're doing pre-orders, and pre-orders are a big deal especially when you're writing. Not everyone does pre-orders, and there's lots of people selling tons of books that don't pre-order anything. But if you're writing a series, generally speaking, when someone gets to the end of the book, if you have the next book on pre-order right there, bam, you're going to get a very high percentage of people clicking on that and pre-ordering the next book, which means it's automatically going to be delivered to them when they come out and they're going to see it. So you can set them up to a year out on Amazon. I'm not sure about the other retailers, but I'm Amazon exclusive. So on Amazon, it's a year out.
I think everybody's a year out.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. You can move that up, but you can't move anything back. Obviously, if it's a year, you can't move back anyway. But if you set a date, you can move it back once up to 30 days, and then that's it. You're done. Amazon will stop you doing pre-orders if you miss that. So you that's one of the reasons some people don't like doing pre-orders, because it locks them in, right? So there's no wiggle room. So it depends on your lifestyle and how you perceive things and what worries you. And some people get really anxious about it. For me, it's just part of my schedule of what I have to do. It's the timelines I have to hit. So it all backs up from that. Yeah, I know how long it takes me to write. I know I've got to get it to editor at this date. I know this is where the pre-order is. So by planning further out like that, I can drop in what I want to do. And I can still reshuffle stuff around. So I've made a big change over the last 12 months because I'm going to be writing a new series. And I've started writing a new series, but it's not out yet. It's not announced yet. But I know where I can slide that in, both the writing-wise and the release.
You just halfway announced it.
I guess I halfway did, but that's only 2 people that hear about it. Well, 3 plus you. Let's move on to Kat Johnson, who is a New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of lighthearted, feel-good, steamy contemporary romance with decades of experience in the industry. She's a lovely lady.
Wait, you said how many? Is she like 24? You didn't tell me that?
Yeah, she's like 24 years old. So she started really young. We'll be polite and not mention her real age. She's an absolute sweetheart. And one of the things that I think that we're going to get out of chatting with her about the different steam levels is this applies. I mean, just because she's writing romance and we're going to be talking about different steam levels and various things, it applies. Do you have violence in your books? Are you writing thrillers? Do you have language in your books? That's a big deal. That's a big deal when you cross over certain thresholds of having certain words in your books, whether they can be clean or not clean, what's considered that way. So what we're going to be talking about applies to all these different things, not just the romance. So let me stop yabbering and let's talk with Kat Johnson. Kat, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. How are you?
I'm very well. It's amazing to meet you guys and talk to you in person.
Yeah, now we know each other a little bit from a chat room that we're in the mornings, an author chat room, which is great fun. So we're used to hearing each other and not seeing each other. This is great. Give the listeners a little bit of an intro into how you got involved in writing and publishing.
I was an English major and I was getting inventoried out of my college dorm room. And the guy who was doing the inventory says, "Oh, you're from Westchester County, New York?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "My girlfriend lives there. She's an editor." And I go, "Well, what a coincidence. I'm an English major." He's like, "Here's her card." I called her when I got home, and 2 weeks later, I had my first trad pub contract. Now, don't be too impressed. It was work for hire, which means it was this was back in the 90s when all those teen books were out, like Sweet Valley High, Sweet Valley Twins, Girl Talk, Babysitter's Club, all of those. Well, there's like 40 books per series.
Nick's read all of those. Don't worry.
Yeah, you should. They're great.
He has the whole collection of the Babysitter Club at his house. It's
the Traveling Pants thing. I watched that movie, actually, the Traveling Pants one.
Babysitter's Club has a fairly new streamer on Netflix.
They do,
so they're all coming back. So what people don't know is that there's like a stable of authors writing those books under one pseudonym. So I got picked up for 3 different series, and one of them was Girl Talk. I did 12 books by the time we were done for those 3 series. But Girl Talk actually had a TV show with Soleil Moon Frye and who was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who played her.
I can't think of her name either, and I met her in a bar once, actually.
Well, those were the 2 hosts of this talk show, the Girl Talk show that went along with the books that I was
Sarah
writing.
Michelle Gellar.
There you go.
It is. Boom.
And they also had a board game. And if you ever watched The Goldbergs, which took place in the 90s, it was a TV show like on ABC, they played the Girl Talk board game. So I was attached to that series, but nobody knows because my name was the tiny, teeny, tiny letters on the copyright page because I was writing under a pseudonym. So that's how I got it started. But eventually those series wrapped, and I was really spoiled because I had gotten that contract.
That is I know it was a background writing thing, but still, most of the people we talk to are like, well, I wrote stuff and I submitted the hundreds and hundreds and it took years and all this stuff. And then finally you're like, I kind of ran across this person 2 weeks later, I'm signed.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened after those series wrapped. I started to send out submissions and get rejections, which was new for me. So I went into the business world. I had 2 majors, a marketing and an English. So I went into the marketing world, but you always use your English degree, no matter what you're doing, you're writing or you need words.
I would if I had one.
Yeah, there you go. So eventually small press started to creep up and the ebooks. And I decided, my husband kept saying, "You're a writer. Why aren't you writing?" So I jumped back into the writing world. In 2006, I released my first romance with a small press. And now, almost 20 years later, I stopped counting, but it's probably about 100 books published and small press, Kensington, mass market paperback. And now I am basically 100% indie.
Okay, so 100% now indie. And I introduced you beforehand as being 24 years old. So you started when you were 4.
In the womb.
We'll leave that going.
He's just making up stuff earlier. So, yeah. So are your indie stuff, is it wide? Is it Kindle Unlimited? Is it?
Oh, that's the conundrum, isn't it?
That's the question everybody asks. Like, what should I do?
Yeah, the follow-up question is, why are you?
The point to remember is I started writing for Amazon before Amazon had the brainstorm of KU. It didn't exist. So I was wide. My best first year was on Barnes & Noble because Barnes & Noble was the behemoth until the Kindle. So I am mostly wide, and I do have a wide audience. However, I have to say, I was in a couple of group projects this year, and the group consensus was to put these 2 series into KU. And I have to say, I'm making more money with those 2 series in KU.
We know a couple of people that, it was last year, especially with the Sell Direct boom that was going through all the conferences and what have you. I think a lot of people pulled out of KU, but we've got a couple of people that we know, Wayne Stinnett and Kirsten Modulin, 2 that come to mind that went back into KU. Kirsten's gone back in and she's staying in now. And it was like she was doing really well and she did ridiculously well when she went back into KU. So I don't know if that has a timeline, like it's just people catching up. they were already selling a lot of books. So, I think, going in, going out, if you're starting out and you're not selling that much, it's not going to be a big light switch either way, because you've still got to build the audience, however it is. But when you're established and already selling at a pretty high level, like both of those two were, going back in opens up a pretty big door.
Yeah, that is the answer to the question. It depends where you are in your career. It depends what your goals are. If I was starting out dead new today, or if I started a new secret pen name or something, I would start in KU because there's no barrier to sale.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very easy and you get a lot more. It's easy marketing because KU is going to market itself too. So that's kind of nice in my opinion. I think most of my money comes from KU, so I'm not jumping out anytime soon, but I've tested the waters with Wide, and I can see the value of it, because Kirsten said the reason she got out of KU was she got her account shut down. And so she was scared and pulled out and rebuilt it as Wide, but then found that when she went back in, it was much better. So I think that's going to be a big depends for people, in my opinion, too.
So you write steamy.
Yes.
How steamy do you write?
Well, it's a spectrum. Back in the day, Alora's Cave was the big small press that everybody aspired to. And they wanted stuff so steamy that, like, I don't even think I was capable of writing it that steamy. So I was with Sam Hain, which was like the slightly less steamy stepsister of Alora's Cave. But back then we were writing E.L. James's coattails, and people wanted the high steam in the ebooks because that was the beauty of the ebook. Nobody saw what you were reading. It could be as steamy as you wanted. So, I mean, I had publishers pushing me to write steamier and steamier and steamier. So those books from the beginning of my career, like threesomes and multi-partners.
Not the Babysitter Club's one, though.
Not
just
the
so you
Babysitter
clarify.
Club. Which is why I have a pen name for the romance, and I wrote the Babysitter Club type stuff under my legal name. Yeah, but now I'm finding myself getting more and more mainstream. Like, there'll be a little bit, but right now I'm writing a series that is more mystery than it is even romance, and they're a continuing couple. So there's not that big first time. They're not the big first kiss. He's there to provide the eye candy, but there's like hardly any even open door sex. So it's really a spectrum. I think someone who picked up my first threesome back in, from 2007, 2006, and who picked up Cadaver Lab 3 from last year would think I was two different authors, I think, except that I have the same voice. But as far as the open door sex, it's completely different.
When was your first threesome, Nick? When did you pick up your first one? I was just curious. So.
Let's move on.
Okay.
So was this a gradual change for you, or was it a conscious step? And did you consider doing a different pen name when you made that change?
I did try that once when, years ago, again, Selena Kitt was written up, I want to say, in the Wall Street Journal as making $1 million a year writing her Baumgartens, which was basically a babysitter who comes in and does the whole family. They were dirty.
That's the Babysitter Club.
It was the Babysitter Club XXX. And I was
I'm sorry, that's the one Nick has at his house. I knew it was weird. I was like, wow, okay.
So I decided I was going to start a pen name to write erotica, and I was going to make $1 million too. So I tried. I wrote Cat House, which was about a legal brothel in Nevada. And I did a lot of research, watching the HBO special about the actual cat house and the actual women who work there and the guy who runs it.
You could have called Doug. He could have given you some insight.
I did all that research too, but I didn't write a book. So
the problem was it ended up just being a really hot romance. And I was getting all these 5-star reviews for this unknown author's name, people saying how great this is. And I'm like, well, that's because it's like my 50th book. So I finally just came out of the erotic writer closet and just put my own name on it. And I don't even promote it because it is so out of character for me. But it's a great story. The characters are good. The writing has my funny voice, and there's just a lot of sex. So as far as it being a conscious decision, I saw if I wanted to get into trad pub for a while, the market could be a little less steamy. But then Kensington wanted me to write a really steamy one too for their Brava line. So I think it's just. I also just think right now, like last year, I just got tired of writing the sex scenes. Like, this plot is so great for me and so fun to write, and the characters are so fun and I love them all, that I didn't need the sex really to make it compelling. I mean, we've talked about this in Clubhouse, Nick, so you might have heard this before, but I wrote a small town series when I moved here to this small town from civilization. One of my readers emailed me and said, is your actual town like the town in the book? I said, it is the town in the book. I'm like changing names so I don't get sued. She's like, can I come visit you? I said, of course you can come visit me. She moved here 6 months later because she loved the town so much, and she only came here because it was in my book.
So have you not marketed yourself to the Chamber of Commerce in your town? Like, hey,
I'm now on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, and
hey, there's people, advertising books all the time. Like, you could be like, hey, we're just going to be the sponsor for the sponsored ads for.
No, I did. I just sponsored the Pee Wee wrestling tournament, and he's like, what should I put on your sponsorship? Cat Johnson love stories? And I go, no, how about just author Cat Johnson? Since it's going to be at the middle school for the Pee Wee wrestling tournament.
The Cat House by Cat Johnson.
Exactly.
And I didn't go and look for that. The mayor emailed me directly and said, would you sponsor? And I was like, ugh, okay, if you think it's okay, sure.
Hey, I bet there's a lot of wrestling mums that love to read your books.
Exactly. And they're sitting there bored.
You need to get the shirts, have all their uniforms, have a cover of yours on there so that when they're wrestling,
it's got to be a man chest cover.
Well, back in the day, I was writing bull riders, and I used to sponsor bull riders, and they had shirts with my URL on it, and my tagline was "Let's Buck." And then I'd have my URL. I'd supply the writing shirts. 3 people have tattoos now that say "Let's Buck" on their bodies from my tagline.
God.
Wow.
My bull rider, his sister, and one of my readers who loved that story.
Oh my gosh, that's
so.
brilliant.
Don't forget, I have a marketing degree. I will market all day, every day. It's the writing that I have to force myself to sit down and put the hands on the keyboard.
Oh, wow. See,
I'm definitely the other way around. It's like marketing's like needles in the eyeballs. But no, so that's brilliant. So how many series do you have going concurrently now? How many are still running?
2 actively. The Cadaver Lab one, that's kind of like more mystery and small town, is kind of a spinoff from that small town series I was talking about, the Kissing Books Mudville series where the girl moved here. It's kind of like series 2.0, where it's the same world and the characters cross over, but where Kissing Books and all those books are first person and they're just small town. Cadaver Lab, I changed to third person, which is a whole other thing. It's more mystery focused, even though it's in the same town, the same world, and the same people pop in. So that one's going. And then I'm in that multi-author project still where it's a military romance, protector romance. So there's 5 of us and we all release 1 book a year and they're tied very closely together. That's still ongoing right now too.
And then obviously you've got a ton of books in backlist, which is a big deal. I know we've talked about it in the morning stuff is finding ways of marketing backlist and get it out there. And so let's talk about covers a little bit, because this applies across any genre you're writing. The desire for a certain type of cover moves around. But with what you're writing, it shifts at the same time, right? There's a certain market that want the man chest steamy covers, and there's some that don't want that. They want to be able to sit at a bus stop and read their book and not feel like they're being judged.
Yeah, I saw the switch around 2020 when TikTok spawned Book Talk, and when all of the younger generation was locked at home and they discovered books and reading and collecting and displaying. And it's that generation that really hates the man chest, hates it. Whereas my older ladies love the man chest. So I found that we had to make concessions. To start with, I left the man chest on the Kindle version because, nobody sees that. And it's also just as popular when there's those teeny tiny thumbnails scrolling by in your search on Amazon. The man chest might pop better than just something that's like just an object cover.
That's why I put my man chest on all of my covers.
You should.
See that, yeah.
And then I was doing an alternate cover paperback. So I would have the man chest paperback, and then I would have like a cartoony illustrated cover paperback. And then eventually, because this one series, people love it, but it struggles to get attention. So I eventually switched over to all the cartoony covers for that too. And I can switch back. That's the beauty of being indie, is I can pivot when I see that I need to. But then when I started the Cadaver Lab series, I decided to go with just the typographical one, that it's just mostly the typeface and like a pretty design and behind it like a frame design. So I'm really all across the board now. You can find Manchester cartoons and there's the typography all across the board for me. But I keep the series consistent. You know what series you're in because that series is tightly branded.
Right. Yeah. So if you're in one series, it's going to have that same branding. So
you were talking about two different covers for in the paperbacks. How do you handle that with the retailers, and how does it appear on the buy page?
They don't seem to care. They don't care because, like, if let's say Colleen Hoover had her book out and now it's a movie, they will have an alternate cover paperback that has the movie people on the cover. So as long as you somehow differentiate it, and I can say alternate cover paperback on there, or I'll say special edition paperback, because I did like a Christmas cover with like a winter scene for one, and then the other one was the clenched couple. So it is truly a special edition if you want the Christmas cover, you know.
And there are people who like both. Like some of those people in those readers groups get mad about the alternate "It Ends With Us" cover with Blake Lively, or versus the other one. It's amazing how vitriol they get about it. But they're like, "Oh, I want just the regular covers." But I see that they seem to like all sorts because it's become such a big collector's thing, which is kind of amazing in that. So, how often do you end up updating these covers? Like that's something I was just having a discussion with a friend of mine about how often we should be updating our covers anyway to improve sales and stuff. And with those trends that change, what are you looking at as far as that?
I don't do it that often. Maybe I should. I did that one whole series cover change because I knew the book could do more. And I wanted to hit a different market. So I had already ran a BookBub featured deal on kissing books with the Manchester. I had run it for 99 cents and it hit number 15 in the Kindle store. So I knew the sell-through was amazing. I made a fortune on that. And I knew if I could push it out there to new people, they would love it. And then I did a free BookBub featured deal a year later and it sold like hotcakes. I was making 8 times return on my spend because they bought through the whole thing. Those were both with the Manchester. And then it was really, everybody was leaning hard in the rom-com, the small town rom-com. They were really leaning hard into the illustrated covers. So I'm like, you know what? I've already hit all the people so far doing those 2 BookBub featured deals and all the ads and stacking ads. So I'm going to hit the next people now. So that's why I changed those covers to the illustrated because I wanted a whole new group of people to discover this. So I make my choices strategically whenever possible.
That's good. Yeah. So I have a question while we're on the covers. So your book, Ride, Studs in Spurs. So what did she lose down the front of his jeans that she's looking for?
It's amazing I haven't been put in the ban list from Amazon because those covers are hot. Those are the hot books I was talking about, Nick.
I was looking through your covers and I'm like, oh, wait a second. What's going on there?
Is that your new screensaver, Nick? Come on.
It might be. Yeah.
It might be. Yeah.
It might have to be. Yeah. All right. So let's move on from my silliness. So the next thing is newsletter list. So again, with those different steam levels, which can be, we're talking to you about steam levels, but this can be in different levels. If you're writing different genres, if you're writing different levels of, say, violence or language in your books, you have to make these decisions too. So do you split your newsletter?
I do not. Mostly because what I said before is every book is in my voice. So it doesn't matter if they're, military men, cowboys, small town, rom-com. They're character driven, they're plot driven. And I think, and I've talked to readers about this. If the steam level really bothers them, they will just skip that one chapter because it won't affect the story. It won't affect their enjoyment of the story. Now, I would not suggest they read Cat House or, Educating Ansley or any of those when I was trying to be erotica. But as far as like the ones that I'm currently pushing out now to my newsletter, because I do like to show them the backlist as well as the front list, because there's plenty of people on there who've never seen my complete backlist. I think those are all close enough that I'm not going to offend anybody. I don't write like Christian or Inspy and then throw a steamy at them. I think it's all just different levels of steam, and I think they can be okay with that.
I just say that the use of front list and back list, you make it sound so dirty.
Hey, she's an erotica writer.
I was going to say, I'm just like weirdly, like strangely.
A failed erotica writer.
He is like a 13-year-old boy, though. He's easy to arouse. I got to tell you that.
I giggle at middle school boy things too. Don't worry.
That's what my middle school girlfriend did. So why not? So what about, okay. So like when you're talking about let's move to advertising, because I think this is something that there's just lots of discussion in the thriller world about the guns and blood on the cover that Amazon won't let you. What are the restrictions you find advertising with steamy covers?
Yeah, no side boob, no hip bones. A hip bone on a male is the kiss of death. Even if he's got pants on, if they're riding too low to show that happy trail, that's the kiss of death. Side boob hanging out on the girl. I've painted, because I do my own covers, I've painted shirts on girls. I've painted straps on girls who are topless, so it looks like they're wearing a tank top. So that kind of stuff. And we do know, because I write military romance too, I do know they don't love guns on covers, but having the gun pointing at the reader is the kiss of death. What I'm really, really conservative with the book one in a series, because mostly I'll be advertising that book one and making sure that I'm getting the sell through by one compelling story, but also having the back matter really on point. But you can probably get a little more risque or a little more, try things out on the later books in the series, because you won't have to advertise those if you do it right.
So what do you do for your back matter? That's always another question that gets asked. Like, what's the best method? Because oftentimes, Amazon will just, if you're on a Kindle version, it cuts it away at that last bit. So,
and we've all experimented on that too.
Yeah, we all have our different things. So that's something that's often a question. I think
we can count on them to see and do one thing. So I write the last sentence of the book, and then there's a carriage return, just a space. I stopped even putting in the ornamental break, because sometimes that'll trigger that pop up from Amazon. And then I put if you loved Mudville, then don't miss Red Hot featuring Red and Cash or whatever, and the direct link to that direct store buy page. And then the next page I can do, well, here's the whole series here. And then at the end of my bio, I'll say, if you want to see me on social or get my newsletter, I'll do it at the end of the bio, and they might never see it. But what do I want? Do I want a newsletter subscriber it might go into junk mail, or do I want their money on the next book? I want their money on the next book.
And you can only have one call to action, right? Because as soon as they click on something and they go out, the likelihood is they're not coming back in.
Now, where I will sometimes stray from that is if I do write a bonus scene as a
I was going to ask
magnet,
you about bonuses.
Yeah, in the back. So I'll put that. I'll also put a teaser for the next book, but then I will also put, and if you want to read like this deleted scene or this backstory or this like origin story, I've done origin stories for like the old people in the books, click on this. And then I make sure that I really hit them hard to get them on the newsletter. Well, they click on it, they have to go on the newsletter, but then I hit them hard to go to the rest of the series too, because you've got back matter in your free bonus too. So make sure you utilize that. I've also been putting both a hyperlink that is blind that you just click on, the URL spelled out so that if they can't click on it, they can type it into a browser, and third, a tiny QR code. Because I've learned that on those paperweights from Amazon, you can't click on stuff. So it's all useless, right? Like if I want them to go out to my newsletter.
So you treat it like a paperback. Because they can't click on it in a paperback.
And then it'll be in a paperback too. So they just pick up their phone and shoot that QR code. So there's 3 ways for them to get there. And I know that they will go, if they're really, really into it, they will go and they will search online. So I have to make sure that they can find.
You shared that trick in the back matter in our Clubhouse group. And ever since you said it, that's what I've been using. And it really, really works well, because I was having trouble getting, some people it would 404 error, because it depends what device they're on and what internet provider they have, or which service it is, and often it would 404. So having those 3 ways of doing it really cut out a ton of problems of people getting to it. So yeah, thank you big time for that.
Yeah, I use the QR code and the link as well, usually for a bonus chapter. But I'm also amazed, like the number of people who don't go in for it. Like you would think that a lot of people would like, oh, free, and just jump right to it. And that percentage of people who actually click through is much.
Or the people that get pissed off. you get an email and they're pissed off because they had to click on 2 things to get to the free bonus you gave them. I think one of the things is trying not to write something, because several of mine have something that happens after the end of the story, and then they see that as being the end of the book, and you just didn't put it in the book and then did it afterwards instead of it being the bonus content. So I think if you can try and do something that's an aside, like you said, a background on some characters, something interesting, or picking up an element in the story that didn't get covered completely, you could write a little bit more about, something like that. Staves off a lot of that rubbish. Cool. All right. So are you using TikTok? You mentioned it earlier.
I use TikTok half-ass because I find if I want to post on it every day or even 3 times a day or even 1 time a day, it becomes it feels like a full-time job, and it feels like that's all I'm doing is looking for content, creating. Yeah. So I'll be all gung-ho for 3 days, and then I go away for 3 months. So I'm not that worried about it. I did have a TikTok shop for a while. They changed their policies where they kind of like Amazon. They're all about the customer, but they really don't treat the authors very well. So they were letting people return the paperback books for cash, even though they'd already read them. And so I was like, I'm out. So I won't miss it if it goes. I'm sad to say, because a lot of my friends make a lot of money on it, but I don't think I'm going to miss it. I think we'll find something else that takes over for it, and the book community will just migrate.
And MySpace is back.
MySpace is back. We'll see. But a bunch of authors have jumped over there.
I've heard MySpace is coming back.
And so. Blue Sky is everyone that's bailing off of the others are jumping on Blue Sky. So there's always something
But
new,
we do that. There's this big push. What was it, 5 or 6 years ago? MeWe was, every one of my readers hey, well, you can be on MeWe? And I was like, nobody else is. I think Blue Sky is going to be kind of the same way. It's just not going to take on quite as much. I hope so, but we shall see.
All right. So a question that we ask everybody who comes on the show, Kat, is what do you feel is your author superpower? This can be from the creative side or the marketing side or whatever you feel is the one thing that you really check the box on.
We often talk about Becca Syme and her strengths in the clubhouse. And I know people who don't have their strengths get frustrated with us. But
Doug has his. He just can't find them.
No, I found them. I got them now.
So how I know those strengths work is that I had only paid to see strengths 1 through 5, but I was guessing that I'm a learner. So I paid to get all 34, and I'm a number 6 learner. So that just proves. So I think that's my strength, is that I never assume I know everything. I never think that there's nothing out there that I can't learn. So I will go out and I want all the stuff. I want all the new stuff. I want all the information. And yet you can't let it control your life and take over so that you're not producing. But I think that's one of my strengths, is that I want to keep on top of the industry. I want to be on the cutting edge. And I just don't want to rest on my laurels and say, well, this is how we did it 10 years ago. Well, 10 years in book community might as well be 100.
And it can be daunting, right? There's so much stuff. There's so much information being thrown at you. And there's so many people claiming to be the mastermind genius that just watch this video and you'll.
Yeah, we were talking about the overuse of the term mastermind lately.
Yeah, it's mind-numbing. Mind-numbing. Cool. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. All right, we have one more question. Doug is going to spin a wheel, and you're going to get one of these random questions.
Can I tell you, this scares the hell out of me? I've listened to your show, and the random wheel of questions scares me.
Really?
Yes.
There's only one in there that says poke your eyeball out. The others are all safe.
Mostly, yeah. So now we know. All right, ready?
That would be a thriller thing to do, wouldn't it? But
you just do it for the sound effect. I know it.
Okay. What is the first music concert you ever went to?
But what was his name? The guy who sings Stroke Me, Billy
Squire.
Yes, that's it.
I'm happy to know that I didn't know the answer to that. Kat, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a blast. We really appreciate it. And it's lovely to finally meet you in person.
Thank you guys for inviting me. And I love talking books, so it was fun.
How cool was that? She's lovely.
Yes, she was very fun. I think the value of what she's doing with different steam levels is the same with what we can do with violence. Like my chase books are, chock full of people dying and being killed, and you, on the other hand, have nobody dies.
No, people die, but not at the level of Chase. Chase has a pretty good body count. But also in saying that, Yeah, you have a high body count, but also your violence level isn't excessive. It's not gory excessive. I'm pretty sensitive to that sort of thing, and I'm comfortable with the level you're at. I mean, it's
I got to ramp it up. I got to get you get you all uncomfortable.
If you want to like get with the Saw movie stuff, then you're going to have to ramp it up quite a bit.
My new book that's coming out in February is going to follow one of my side characters, and I purposely chose to make it a lot cleaner. It's going to be more of a straight mystery, and so a lot of mystery is one of those things that sometimes you don't want a lot of language and lots of sex. So I kept it pretty clean, very minimal language in it, and no sex. It was pretty much, but a lot of fun still. So.
Cool. I'm excited. I can't wait to read it. I love the cover.
And I think you're like the difference between AJ and Nora is you've got a little more suspense, a little more. It's definitely a step up, and I think that you can still do it too. And she's doing it with different steam levels. We're doing it with different action levels. So it's just be aware of what your market is, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I always tell people that the AJ Bailey series is basically PG-13, and the Nora series is edgier. There's a bit more cussing in it. There's a bit more violence in it, but not nothing gory. And but there is more body count for sure.
Where are you, sir? You look very tan.
We are in the Dominican Republic. We were supposed to be in Cayman. We've been supposed to be in Cayman now for about 4 months, and we're still waiting on something to fall in place so we can get over there. So we're like, sod it. We'll go somewhere else. So we're in Dominican for at least a month. We'll see. We may extend it if we need to, but it's lovely. Yeah, we managed to get through Airbnb. We managed to get this waterfront place with a great view. It's a lovely place to be writing from. We've been sick, unfortunately, for the past week, but we're finally coming out of it and get to enjoy the place a little more. So how about you? You're at home in the snow.
It's been last week we had snow. It's still on the ground, and let me tell you what. In my opinion, snow is a lot like meth. It seems like a good idea at first, and then like a week later, it's just mucky and gross, and it's.
So, for those of you that were considering meth as a good idea, then there's a public service announcement for you.
I mean, I think you start meth, you have to think it's a good idea at some point, or else why would you do it? So, I assume it's the same thing. Like,
I've never quite ended up down that path where I've been.
I'm just saying, it's the same thing.
Looking at a guy burning a spoon, going, I think I might want to do that.
I mean, I feel the same way about like people like, hey, it's going to snow, and I'm like, to me, it's about the same. I'm more likely to.
I love snow when I have skis on and I'm in the mountains, but otherwise, snow's a bit of a pain in the ass.
I mean, I will say for Memphis, if Memphis gets snow, it's generally like one day you get 4 inches and it's gone. And this was a pretty solid, like we had like a good 10 inches of snow. It was perfect for making a snowman. We made some snow cream. That was the extent of what I wanted to do. And then I was wishing I was down in the Dominican Republic with you. So
exactly. Very cool. That was a great show. And thank you very much, Kat, for coming on and joining us. So check out the show notes. I'll be linked to Kat's information as well as our book, social media, and look for new episodes every couple of weeks. Until next time, be cool to each other.
Fair winds and following seas.
You've been listening to the Two Authors podcast with Nicholas Harvey and Douglas Pratt. Subscribe on your favorite platform for alerts on new shows coming every 2 weeks.